Yes, yes. War, war. But the harvest?
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about Nick Fury's biggest, darkest secret that we learned in Secret Invasion Episode 5, the harvest.
Nearly every Avenger spilled blood in the Battle of Earth. In the aftermath, some were sent in to collect that DNA.
Who the fuck starts a conversation like that? I just sat down.
Now, this is messed up for so many reasons. We are going to talk about why Fury did this, what his plans were, and how we think that all of this is going to lead up to Captain America: Brave New World.
Where was that?
I saw nothing. So just to catch you up, after the Battle of Earth at the end of Avengers Endgame, Nick Fury sent Skrull agents into the battlefield to meticulously collect the DNA of all the heroes. And he called this the Harvest. Now, that name is incredibly dehumanizing. It implies that the heroes were nothing more than resources to be gathered up and used for later.
Think you got enough?
And maybe that's how Fury has always seen the heroes, as living weapons to be used to defend Earth.
Man, that's creepy. Why would Fury treat the heroes in such a way?
Well, let's go back and look at Fury's personal history, both before and during phases 1 through 3, and then we'll understand where Fury's coming from, and we can figure out what his end goal really was and how it leads the way forward for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fury grew up seeing the worst of humanity. He grew up poor in the segregated South, much like Samuel L. Jackson, who was born in 1948 and grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now, it's interesting that Jackson's past mirrors his character so closely. Samuel L. Jackson also loved comic books as a kid, and also to this day.
I always read comics. From the time I was a kid, I used to buy comic books.
So I wonder if Nick Fury had a similar background, reading those Captain America comics that we saw in First Avenger. This would explain his unbridled faith and enthusiasm in superheroes. So in this series, though, we learn a little bit about Fury's upbringing, about how not only did he have to ride in a different train car than white people, but they weren't even allowed to buy food.
We couldn't go in the dining car.
And we see this worldview reflected when he lectures Talos about the Skrulls.
There is not enough room or tolerance on this planet for another species.
Now you have to think how hard it must have been for Fury to climb the ranks of S.H.I.E.L.D. as a black man in the 1980s and 90s.
Men who look like us don't get promoted because of who our daddies know.
But like Talos says, the Skrulls were responsible for his rise to power.
You didn't start ascending the ranks until me and 19 of my people signed on as your invisible spy network.
Not that they did all the work for him, not necessarily, but the appearance of the Skrulls and Kree gave Nick Fury a purpose in his career. After meeting Carol and seeing the Kree warships, he realized that humanity was outgunned and needed help. They needed heroes. This is why, at the end of the movie, he authors the Avengers Initiative. In doing this, he admits that humanity is not enough to fight these threats. As he puts it, the heroes are there
To fight the battles that we never could.
At least, that's the story he told the Avengers. The real story is Fury has always been building up contingencies, like the harvest, just in case the heroes failed.
Excuse me?
Hey there, can I help you?
Yeah. Would you kill me, please?
What? Why?
Well, I got a promotion yesterday, and I went out to celebrate, and I've made a series of errors.
You should have tried Z-Biotics. They're the sponsor of this video.
What's a Z-Biotic?
Well, Z-Biotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And guys, Z-Biotics really works. I order some every month. This stuff is holy nectar in my household. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. Now, it's this byproduct and not dehydration that's to blame for like the rough day you have after drinking. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. It's designed to work like your liver, but it works in your gut where you need it to work the most.
Shut up, liver.
So what you do is you take a Z-Biotic before you start drinking, and of course, drink responsibly, get a good night's sleep, all that stuff. And I'm not kidding about this, guys. I love Z-Biotics. I don't drink very often, but when I do, it's good to know that I'm still gonna have a good tomorrow.
Yeah, next time I'll use Z-Biotics.
You won't regret it, and neither will you. I highly recommend you give Z-Biotics a try. Go to zbiotics.com/ScreenCrush or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use the code ScreenCrush at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you are unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. So back to Fury. He always has a contingency, kind of like his secret eyeball that had backdoor access to the S.H.I.E.L.D. mainframe.
Alpha level confirmed. Encryption code accepted.
Fury's first contingency was the Skrulls themselves. As we covered in this video, it might have always been Fury's plan to never find the Skrulls a home. Or at least he lied about how easy it would be for the other planets to overcome their anti-Skrull, anti-shape-shifting sentiment and allow the Skrulls to settle on their worlds. It's a good video, you should check it out. But Fury had no problem using the Skrulls to make S.H.I.E.L.D. such a dominant global power that it reported directly to the World Security Council. So in many ways, a bolstered S.H.I.E.L.D. was his first contingency as he sought out superheroes. In the early days, his options were pretty limited as far as heroes went. Banner's Hulk was too unreliable, Hank Pym was a retired loose cannon, and Carol,
Don't invoke her name.
is very far away. So while he spent years waiting for more heroes to become available to him, he gathered alien tech, Hydra weapons, anything he could use in case a larger threat arrived. That's what I mean by S.H.I.E.L.D. was his original contingency. But then a real superhero revealed himself to the public.
I am Iron Man.
But he's such a mess that he's kind of a bust. And then, after the Destroyer levels a small town in Thor, Fury decides to really step up these contingency plans. This is when S.H.I.E.L.D. began to use the Tesseract to recreate the experiments of Arnim Zola, to use the cube to
make weapons.
And by the way, Zola worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. for years, but he never did this himself. And actually that makes total sense, because why would Zola want S.H.I.E.L.D. to have that kind of firepower? Anyways, the events of the Avengers prove Fury right. The Avengers overcome their differences and protect the Earth. Hell, Fury has so much faith in them that he actually allows them to go their separate ways at the end of the movie, just like how Carol left Earth years before but promised to return if she was needed. Now when pressed on this, Nick says that they'll come back.
They'll come back.
Why?
Because we'll need them to.
And then S.H.I.E.L.D. fell, and this only reinforced Fury's belief that the heroes were the only salvation for Earth. He couldn't stop Hydra, but Captain America could. He couldn't take down Alexander Pierce, but Black Widow could. And his moral judgment was so compromised at this point that he needed Captain America to be the one to kill S.H.I.E.L.D.
S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra. It all goes.
So in Age of Ultron, when the heroes royally screw up, Fury still believes in them.
I was kind of hoping when I saw you, you'd have more than that.
I do. I have you.
You see, after Winter Soldier, Fury didn't give up protecting the world. He just worked from the shadows. He even held on to an old helicarrier for emergencies. In Infinity War, we see him coordinating security with Maria Hill and referencing Cameron Klein.
Tell Klein we'll meet him at...
Who's Calvin Klein?
Well, Calvin Klein is a time traveler. Cameron Klein is this guy who stood up to Hydra in the Winter Soldier and is working with Fury and Hill in this post-credit scene of Infinity War. The point I'm making here is that Fury didn't retire and let the heroes handle things. He kept working behind the scenes as a contingency in case the heroes failed. In fact, during this time, he was probably lending his expertise to SWORD, an organization partially founded by Maria Rambeau. But then, Captain America's Civil War happened. Now, even though Fury was not in that movie, we can guess that this conflict really shook his faith in superheroes. He saw Tony Stark learn all the wrong lessons from the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. Instead of keeping power decentralized, Tony hands power over to the government. He requests for the government to keep him in check.
We need to be put in check.
And Fury also saw that the government no longer has any faith in the heroes to do the right thing. So now the government is striving for greater control as well. This is just laying the groundwork for some organization like Hydra to be born again. And then the heroes prove the government was right not to trust them. They invalidate Nick Fury's faith in them. They come to blows, nearly killing Rhodey, blowing up an airport, and putting a high school kid in the line of fire. That's followed by another conflict that finally ruins Fury's dream, when the Avengers truly split up.
That shield doesn't belong to you. My father made that shield.
And then the blip. Now think about this from Fury's point of view. Everybody knows that at this point aliens have entered Earth's atmosphere just like they did in the Avengers. Now Fury had to have thought on some level that the heroes would repeat history and defeat the aliens. So the moment he starts to dust, look at his face. Fury isn't just sad that he's dusting, his heart is broken. He sees that the heroes failed, and that means that he failed by putting his faith in them. It's a shame that this show doesn't show us the immediate aftermath of the blip. Imagine Fury like reforming on the spot, learning he's been gone for 5 years. 5 years! He used to know everything, now he knows nothing. His life's work was meaningless. Now we hear about this in this show.
You were never the same after the blip.
I think Thanos' snap changed you.
But it would have been so much more powerful to see this happening to him. So this brings us back to the Harvest. Sorry about all that recap, but it's important to know his headspace. The Battle of Earth happens the same day that Fury is reformed. So that means that Fury's dusted back, finds out it's been 5 years, then hears there was a big battle with some aliens and that Tony Stark died and that Natasha is dead. And his first thought is, hey, let's get some Skrulls over there on the double to collect some blood samples.
That's weird. It's really weird.
And, you know, in the scene where Cap is going back in time, in the background we do see repair crews and helicopters carrying away crates. So there would have been some people on this site. Very easy to send in some Skrulls and bingo, hero DNA.
But why does Fury want Avengers blood?
Well, I can think of 4 reasons, and I'm going to rank them from most altruistic to mostly evil.
I think you're
evil! Number 1, maybe Fiury simply wanted to replicate their blood in case any of them needed a blood transfusion. After all, it would take very specific blood to be compatible with Hulk, a super soldier, or a woman powered by the energies of the Tesseract. Possibility number 2. See, we saw in Civil War that S.H.I.E.L.D. kept some of Steve Rogers' blood, even though in the show Agent Carter, Howard told Peggy that she had the last vial of it.
With your smile so warm and your cheeks so soft.
Now, we also saw that Hydra used that blood to make super soldiers, so maybe that was also S.H.I.E.L.D.'s MO from the start. Fury wanted the heroes' blood to learn how to replicate their powers, and this is what would have given Gravik the idea to begin with. Of all the possibilities, I think this one's probably the most likely. I mean, think about it. Fury's faith in the heroes is now non-existent, and he's a guy who loves his contingency plans, so he wants greater control. This blood would allow him to have his own squad of superheroes, just like the Hydra weapons that S.H.I.E.L.D. was trying to build in the Avengers.
Yeah, but maybe those private superheroes could just rebel against Fury. How would he know that they were going to be loyal to him and him alone?
Well, this is where we really get into some Aldous Huxley Brave New World stuff. Cloning. In the Civil War comic book, Thor was dead at the time, so Tony Stark created a mindless Thor clone to do his bidding. Now, doing this crossed many ethical lines, so several superheroes turned against Tony after this. Now, the MCU has not done much with clones yet, but they're a big deal in the comics. Spider-Man's clone saga was about a villain called the Jackal using Peter Parker's DNA to create several spider clones, and you know what? Even though that storyline almost ended Marvel Comics, very long story, it would still make a killer movie. Imagine that twist though at the end of this series when we go into like Fury's basement in his house and we see like rows of cloning cylinders. I mean, Marvel's already using a lot of Rick and Morty writers, they might as well use the basement clones too.
Operation Phoenix is not the fallback I thought it would be.
It could also be that Fury wanted to clone the heroes just in case they died. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. And that brings me to the 4th most evil possibility, and probably the most likely. He wanted the blood to find and exploit the weaknesses of the heroes.
But why would he do that? Is he a bad guy?
No. He did it in case he would have to, you know. With some of Banner's blood, he could figure out how to neutralize the gamma radiation inside of him, or how to rob Steve Rogers of super soldier serum to make him old. I'm actually still disappointed that Thanos didn't do that to him with the time gem, or like turn him into Skinny Steve, and then Tony would have had to have replicated his dad's experiment from First Avenger in Avengers Endgame. Like, it would have been a full circle moment. Shit, that would have been great. This is what Batman does in the comics. He's got a plan to take down every member of the Justice League just in case they go rogue.
The Justice League is far too dangerous to lack a failsafe against any possible misuse of our power.
This is why Superman gave him Lex Luthor's kryptonite ring, in case he ever lost his mind or went out of control, or in the film Justice League Dark, he gave him a kryptonite bullet.
If the League ever did go over to the wrong side, I want there to be somebody I can trust to keep the planet safe. Even from me.
But I digress. I mean, Fury could have also wanted to know the hero's weaknesses so he could help them. Like, for instance, if he knew how an enemy could drain Carol's powers, like Wanda did to 838 Maria Rambeau, then Fury could make the heroes more powerful so they could overcome their weaknesses. But I think Fury's more of a Batman guy. No matter what his reason was, taking genetic material of heroes who just saved the universe without their consent is a total villain move. And calling it the Harvest dehumanizes the heroes and makes it clear that Fury only ever saw them as assets. After all, this is the guy that ruined Coulson's near-mint collection of vintage cards.
It's a vintage set. Took me a couple of years to collect them all.
Just to tell the Avengers a convincing lie.
Yeah, that is a total supervillain move.
Right? I mean, no wonder Fury doesn't want the heroes to get involved in this show. Now, this is actually a great explanation for why there are no heroes in this show. He doesn't want them to know that he collected their blood and planned to use it against them. So, that's what we know, but I'm mostly interested in how this is going to affect Captain America Captain America Brave New World. So, we don't know much about Brave New World yet, and I'm not a guy who likes to read plot leaks. We do know that it features Harrison Ford as a recast Thunderbolt Ross. We know that Ross is now going to be the president, and that Ford is now taking roles like this because he's in the sunset of his career and he wants to try new things. So I think it's very likely that they will mocap him and Ross will turn into the Red Hulk like he does in the comics.
Either surrender peacefully, or you can resist. Please resist.
And this could explain the return of Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns, the supervillain, the leader from the comics. In The Incredible Hulk, Stearns has synthesized Bruce's blood, and he turns Emil Blonsky into
an abomination,
which was later totally undermined in She-Hulk.
My favorite chicken, Princess Silkfeather, was stuck.
Your favorite chicken?
Yeah.
Stearns could help Ross become the Red Hulk, or maybe, as the supervillain, the leader, he's simply the big bad of the movie who's trying to reorganize the world into a one-world government. So from all that information, we can make a few guesses about how the Harvest ties into this film. First of all, Secret Invasion, the comic book, was a very important crossover because, in the aftermath, the supervillain Norman Osborn was put in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he started to remake the world's security. He formed his own team of Dark Avengers, comprised of supervillains masquerading as heroes. So bring that idea back around to the Harvest. Superhero blood, Hulk blood, blood.
Blood. Blood. Blood. And bits of sick.
Think of Thunderbolt Ross as the embodiment of all of Nick Fury's worst traits. In The Incredible Hulk, he's hunting down Banner because
that man's whole body is property of the U.S. Army.
In that movie, he gives Blonsky a super soldier serum to combat the Hulk. So even in his first appearance in the MCU, we see him trying to harness superhumans to tighten his control of the world. Like Fury, he ends up just having to trust the superhuman, the Hulk, to do the right thing and defeat the Abomination. But Ross didn't learn from this lesson. He doubled down. He spearheaded the Sokovia Accords, split up the Avengers, even hunted down Black Widow, and really just out of spite. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ross, or his namesake super team the Thunderbolts, were the answer to that in the MCU. Now, those titles for Cap 4 does sound like it's about the world governments coalescing into a single government, which could kick off a war with Wakanda, Talokan, or New Asgard, or, like we talked about in this video, World War III could actually break out when these superpower nations refuse to bend the knee. Now, this would mean that by the time Kang rolls in, the Earth is defenseless to stop him. Now, that does sound a bit too much like Phase 3, where Civil War divided the heroes prior to Thanos' arrival. So I'm sure that Marvel's not going to repeat the exact same beats, but this setup of Fury collecting hero blood can take the MCU in so many interesting and fun directions, and I am pumped for it. And everybody, just remember to head to zbiotics.com/ScreenCrush and use the code ScreenCrush at checkout for 15% off. Thanks again, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this video, and I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of all this? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.